Good morning, everyone. We got the connection a few minutes earlier, so we are coming to you live via YouTube, streaming via Facebook online, Facebook is streaming, and also via Skype online. Each one of you is welcomed to this live streaming. There have been always questions about the significance of marriage in a spiritual life. There are many dimensions of it. I will bring it to your attention. Share my insights into drawing references from various sources. According to Islamic tradition, let us look into anything that we see has a physical or surface aspect, and then something which is deeper. We have organs of action that we see, the hand. But there is a subtle aspect of it, organs of action and organs of perception. In the same way, what happens on the surface, we see it, but that which happens deeper we do not see. According to Islamic tradition, marriage is a social contract wherein all arrangements are made. Is a social contract. When a contract is made, various things are taken into account. If it is a business contract, there is a particular language. If it is a contract for job, the format is different. So in the same way, religion has made its format for the contract. According to Christianity, somewhat a religious sanction is given to it. According to Hindus too, a religious sanction is given to it. Something deeper. But with the passage of time, the deeper aspects is lost. According to Hindus, from the time the fertilization takes place between ovum and sperm, life comes into force, comes into effect. There are 16 sacraments which are to be performed in the life of an individual. First is fertilization, then so on and so forth. The last is these are the rituals which are known as sanskar. Sanskar literally means impressions, but it's a something, I would put it as religious sacraments which have to be performed. Just as when you are eating food, you say your prayer, it is kind of a ritualistic sacrament. If we understand the deeper aspect of it, the benefit will be different. So marriage is one of the religious sacrament. Everything, just as in every tradition it is said, when you are eating food, you must offer it to God. Say your prayers. So something like this, in marriage there are various rituals that have to be performed. followed by the chanting of the mantras and then the significance and all these things. Marriage is the union happens between two male and female. It is on the physical level. At the deeper level, according to the secret of the golden flower by the master Lu Su, it is the union of the inner man and inner woman, anima and animus. According to Hindus, this is Shiva and Shakti, the male energy and the feminine energy. But on the surface, this energy is embodied as male and female. But at the deeper level, it is energy level. We cannot see the energy, but it is the energy which is at work through the physical body. It is the energy at work. Energy is subtle, and the physical body remains in operation, and that we know. Shiva is the male energy, and Shakti is the feminine aspect of that energy. Just as according to the secret of the golden flower, anima and animus. Remember, you came into existence, your body came into existence with the interaction of ovum and sperm, the masculine and the feminine energy. And with that, the body was formed. Then whatever is connected with it, subtle, comes into existence. So in fact, through the physical union, the purpose of the marriage is to attain to inner union between Shiva and Shakti, or the male and female, or anima and animus. Remember, when you have an electrical connection in your house, which is very important to have the light, it is there is a positive terminal that comes from the outside. It is not in your field. The negative aspect, which is the feminine aspect, is in-house, and the masculine aspect comes from outside. The two wires are simultaneously run, masculine and feminine, or positive hot wire and the negative or the cold wire. Through these, the energy flows, and then in order for the bulb to light, it is a device that is made to absorb, to connect, to establish a relationship between the masculine and the feminine energy. We can say the fertilization, and then your bulb lights. And all the electrical equipments work on this principle. So in the same way, your body provides the feminine energy, and the masculine energy comes from outside. That is the Shiva aspect, the energy. It is the purpose of a marriage is to attain to this inner union between male and female. Through physical union, at the level of the body it can happen. But according to spirituality, when a person is ready to enter into a marriage relation, does the physical maturity is this way? It is one of the criteria. Along with that, the mental and the spiritual maturity also comes. But in the spiritual dimension, it is the sanction of the master who sees the inner growth of the disciple and permits the disciple to enter into. And it is said, in order to continue on the spiritual path, specifically in Sufis, this is important. Because Sufis were very much down to earth people. They did not follow the path of renunciation. Renunciation through involvement. There are other paths which follow the path of renunciation or a different path. Yet still, the inner union has not been denied by any system. Through yoga, through tantra, through other methods, the inner union is attained. So I will draw a reference from one of the Hindu scriptures, which is Ramayana, one of the most popular and common scripture, adored, respected, and understood by Hindus. When I say Hindus, it is not meant for Hindus alone. It is meant for the entire humanity. When food is made in a prayer or at your home, nobody knows who will be eating that. You may be preparing for certain people, but more than that, unexpected guests comes in, they eat also. When medicine is developed, it is based on certain criteria, but it is for the benefit of the humanity. Whatsoever deep I am speaking, you may like the message, but the subtle aspect is, it is for all those who are ready, who are interested in understanding the deeper aspect. It happened that this is the story of Hindu god Ram and people associated with it, how he was born, how he grew up, how he was exiled for 14 years, and so on and so forth, how he attained victory. I will go into only that aspect of it where the two brothers, they had, and how the master tested them whether they are ready for the marriage or not. The inner preparation is very important. Not the physical maturity, the testosterone energy. You have attained the physical maturity, you become adolescent, and you ready for marriage. You can go into a relationship, but deeper aspect of that is different. It happened that there was a sage, Vishwamitra. The name is symbolic. Vishwa means universe. Mitra means friend. The friend of the universe. He was performing certain experiments. I would use the scientific word experiments with solar energy. How this solar energy can be conserved for the human benefit. You remember in the solar system there are certain planets. The Mars, Jupiter, Moon and Earth all evolved out of Sun. Mars, Jupiter, Moon and Earth. They all evolved out of Sun energy. So whatsoever happens on the surface of this Sun affects these planets and the life on the planets. As a human being, you are formed of the earth element, is the basic element that is part of that forms your body. And every 11 years, great explosions takes place on the surface of the earth, and the scientists have discovered. This is a separate topic which I will not take into account. So Vishwamitra was experimenting and trying to conserve that energy in order for the benefit of the humanity. And demons never liked, that means the demonic forces or the negative elements will not remain operating, so they always oppose and they do not allow anything which is assertive to take place. So they were constantly disturbing, and when someone is in that experiment, they not first and the foremost thing is this: they not to get angry or take the weapons in their hands. So Vishwamitra needed someone who could protect these experiments and constantly guard these experiments. He heard that Ram and Lakshman, the two princes of the kingdom of Ayodhya, had just completed their education at the feet of the master. So he comes to the court and seeks the assistance from the king, and in support of that he asks Ram and Lakshman to be allowed to accompany him and take care of the experiments that they were performing. Reluctantly, the king agreed at the request of their family master, family guru. He said, "You do not know, sage Vishwamitra has come for the benefit, for the upliftment of your children." So it happens, based on that assurance, the king allowed the two young sons, Ram and Lakshman, to accompany the sage Vishwamitra. So there are various tests that he underwent. First was a demoness Tarka. What does she signify? She signifies a nocturnal demoness. Nocturnal means one who gains strength during the night. All the negative forces become strong during the night moments. According to Sufis, there is 11 kalmat, or the points that has to be remembered. In one of them is, when you are lonely, there is two words, lonely, then the negative forces becomes dominant and they come to the surface, they fear, and certain things begin to happen to your biology. We engage into certain acts. So this demoness symbolizes the nocturnal energy. During the day you are occupied in this and that, in the night. That is why all those people who have the problem of the sleep, they will find problem in sleeping in the night because everybody is sleeping. But during the day, they are assured that everyone else is waking, so they naturally fall asleep. So she was nocturnal, which gains strength during the night. So before the dawn comes, she must be slain. So Vishwamitra advises to curb the demoness during the twilight, when she now appears. So all these negative forces appear in the twilight. And it was very important to overcome in the twilight moments your energy that is surging through the physical body, and one engages at that time into certain things which are quite common, which has been emphasized through the pornographic movies and the other things. So all these, the fear and all that acts comes into that. So it happens during the twilight twilight moments. So Taraka symbolizes the nocturnal energy which is harmful. So Vishwamitra advises that as the night progresses, these demonic forces gain more and more strength. So do not play hide and seek game, instead destroy it. So as the hide and seek game, Ram shoots an arrow, the nocturnal demoness hurls her own weapon, and they both destroy one another. Like you say something, the person says something, you give him advice, those balance each other. So unless the positive energy is strong enough to subdue the negative, this hide and seek game continues. This demoness symbolizes loneliness. Initial episode shows Ram was not lonely. Lonely is a negative aspect, and aloneness is the positive aspect of it. He was in fact alone. Alone means all one. He has experienced oneness within the body, mind and intellect. He is one pulsating with the cosmic energy, and this demoness is symbolic of the loneliness, and all the attendants like perverse acts. When do you engage into perverse acts? I do not need to make a mention of this, because when you feel lonely, you are not falling asleep, you go into those acts, perverse acts. One may engage in when one is by oneself and feels lonely. So this demoness gains strength as the night approaches, meaning perversities increase as one gets lonelier, and it happens during the night. Ram was able to subdue her as she first appears during the twilight hours. Twilight interval. Twilight means when one is disappearing, the day is disappearing, night is appearing. That is a moment when it is neither day nor night. That is the moment when you can subdue these things. This thing is beginning to come, a strong desire is beginning to come into you, and before it takes hold of you, you subdue it. It means you overcome her lustful desires as she begins her role. Perverse desires must be curbed as soon as they dawn, otherwise they gain strength and it will be harder to defeat. So what does the master tells Ram? Ram, these demonic forces, they gain strength as the night approaches, night darkness approaches. So before the twilight hour, before they gain strength, you subdue them. This is the first advice of the master. That Before these things comes to you, during the advice, during the growth, spiritual journey, the master advises on various aspects of the life at the physical level. This was the significance that Hindus have given importance of the rituals. When it is a marriage rituals, there are different acts, different sacraments or different rituals to be performed. Each is important for certain reasons, but that deeper aspect is lost, and only the surface, the rituals have remained, the unwanted has remained. So he tells Ram, these demonic forces gain momentum, strength as the night approaches. So before they come to their full strength, subdue them. This was the first. If you are lonelier, feeling lonely, try to understand this. The master explains to you, to the disciple, the difference between lonely and aloneness. And when the seeker attains to the state of all oneness, identifies with it, then that perversities do not affect the individual. The Sufis, as I mentioned in Kalmat, ekant mein parhezgari, means discipline in aloneness. When you are alone, the perversities can take hold of you. So he emphasizes and trains you for that. The second episode comes with the two male demons. One was Marich, the other was Subahu. One was the son of the demoness Tarka. Marich has two meanings. One is death by desire, and the other is the death of desire. It is important to understand these. Death by desire. When the desire goes on increasing, let's take into account the physical energy, the energy surging through the physical body. You resort to something, then that desire becomes so intense that you enter into the act, and then using the intensity of that desire gets, like you are hungry, you are very hungry, you consume food, the desire for hunger is satiated. So this is death by desire. The other is, there is hunger, the desire is there to eat something, you wait. Now at this moment when the desire is there, I am not going to eat, I will wait for some time. Desires as such are not lustful, but there is an association, that is the other demon, Subahu. So this is accomplice. A desire comes in you that you want to thief. But if there is no accomplice, this desire may disappear if you give your own arguments. But if there is an accomplice, the desire gets intense and you enter into the act. So Marich and Subahu are always together, supporting one another. One is the birth of the desire, the other supports, yes, go ahead and let's do that. So desire as such are not lustful unless there is an accomplice. Desires become evil, lustful only when there is a support. And then, so Marich is the death by desire and the death of desire, and Subahu is the accomplice. Ram was able to vanish first Subahu and thus transform desire into energy. So what you have to do, first you have to get rid of the accomplice so that there is no one to encourage. That's why when we are trying to train the people, the children say somebody puts into their mind their friends or something, and so you want to discontinue that friendship, curb that friendship, and then and only then you will be able to bring back that transformation in an individual. You have eaten cold things and you have cold, it may create sore throat or something. So first of all, you say that stop taking that cold things. Do not take the fridge, the ice cold water until your sore throat is rectified. So this is the first thing. You remove that association, and then you start curbing it by giving the gargles to do, by giving the medicines. So these are the ways. Ram was able to vanish Subahu first, and when he was vanished, then the desire that was creating the problem was able to transform into energy for spiritual growth. So first of all, the master tries to see that why this desire is coming into you. Are you reading those kind of literature, or you are interested in, you are having the company of the friends who tell you that, okay, there is nothing wrong in taking a puff of the cigarette. You have never smoked, but someone encouraged, this is how it goes on, this is how the habits are formed. He said, take a puff. And he said, no, I don't want that. He said, no. Then after continuous persuasion, he tries to take, a habit is formed. And then, so first and the foremost thing is this. First and the foremost thing is that you are, that association is curbed. So no more association. And then you will be able to remove those habits, bring about transformation of those desires into energy for spiritual growth. This meaning is further explored when in one of the episodes, Marich, the demon, assumes the form of a golden deer. The deers cannot be golden, but for teaching purposes, for explanation, it assumes the form of a golden deer, and then that means the desire reaches to that level. You know, when the desire continues to gain momentum, and you start analyzing and thinking over it again and again, you will feel that you have attained to that state. Let's say you are desirous of a vehicle. You will continue to start dreaming, and then a stage will come in that you will feel that you have attained the desire, that you have attained the vehicle of your dreams. You are driving in it, you are going in the vehicle on the roads. Then suddenly you realize that you wake up from the deep slumber and somebody wakes you up and the dream is no more. So this demon attains the form of a golden deer, does whatever it is at the pinnacle. The energy having reached the pinnacle, then it was liberated from its mortal coil and Ram kills the demon. These are the two aspects the master sees. First, are you lonely or you are alone? The difference between the two. Teaches you the deeper aspects that you are all one. The same energy that flows into you, pulsates into this entire cosmos. There are meditations when you hug a tree and you will feel as good as anything else because you are pulsating, you are vibrating with the energy, becoming one. Then understanding the nature of the desire and its accomplice. First you destroy the accomplice, which is who is encouraging you. Then you can overcome the desire and remove that menace. The third aspect is, by nature, the mind can forget all the good things, but it never forgets anything that you have done wrong to someone. You miss something, it can never forget. So there was an episode according to Hindus, which I feel that these have been used as a device to train, to bring about transformation in an individual. Do not consider these are mere stories. These are the devices to bring about transformation. There was a particular sage who was living in his commune or ashram or the hermitage, along with his wife. Her name was Ahilya. She was devoted to him. Every morning around 3 o'clock, the sage will get up and will go to the river to take a shower, and then will come back and engage in his worship. The episode says the king of gods, Indra, was very much possessed by the beauty of the wife of the sage, whose name was Ahilya. So he was so much overwhelmed by the beauty and the charm of that person, that always seeking the opportunity to have a relation with her. So he observed, this is what happens, the negative forces try to look at it when the place is empty and they come into. So maybe there would have been unfulfilled desires in Ahilya. So Indra assumes the form of a husband, the form of a sage, because he knew if he goes as in the form as he is, she will not allow him to enter the cottage. So he disguised himself as a sage, and when he observed the sage has gone to the river, he knocks at the door and enters. Ahilya sees, and she could not, because she was also possessed by desire, maybe unfulfilled desire, she could not see that there is a deceit or this is a disguise, and thinking that the person is her husband who also wants to have a relation, she allows him to enter into relation. Having fulfilled that desire, when Indra was coming out of the cottage, the same time sage returned, and he saw someone disguised as him. He understood the mischief. He immediately did something in order to nullify the effect of that act, but he was very angry with his wife. She begged and tried to prove her innocence, but sage did not listen to anything, and he cursed her to become a stone. Here, if we look at the incident on the surface, We say as a sage he should not be angry, but there is a deeper aspect. Sometimes anger is the way to continue the work. So she turns into a stone, then she asks for forgiveness and finds this way to be liberated. The sage says at a particular time when the Lord Vishnu will assume the form, human form as Ram, and he will come and he will touch you, you will be liberated then. So since then she was waiting. She was waiting. We all make mistakes, but the mistakes are not the gauge of one's true being. We make mistakes, but through the mistakes we try to judge the individual. But mistakes are not the gauge for one's true being. Mistakes are to be forgiven and used as a stepping stone on the journey of transcendence and transformation. The mistakes are like the dried leaves that are no more needed on the surface of the tree, and these must fall. So it happens that after slaying Talaka, Ram and his younger brother protects the yajna, the rituals that sage Vishwamitra was performing for the harnessing the solar energy. Thereafter he decided to go. He heard that there was a particular ritual for the marriage of Sita, and sage was invited. So according to that, a particular, you can say, a system was there to know who is the worthy of getting married to this princess. So an act was to be enacted, that whosoever breaks this mighty bow, he will be worthy of getting married to the princess. So on the way, sage Vishwamitra takes Ram to that dungeon, lonely place, the deserted, where that Ahilya was turned into stone. He is wonder with his stuck, and along with this there was a sacred tulsi tree which was green, and everything else has been dried. So he comes to know, and as he touches with the toe that stone, she is liberated. This is not a mere ritual. On the surface you may find and you may say that this is the kind of things which Hindus have been doing. But there is a great understanding behind every act that a Hindu performs. Before you enter into marriage, you have to learn the art of forgiving. Your mother has done something, your father has done something, or somebody else have done something, you can never forget that. Every day you go on saying that you are a stranger, I do not like this thing in you and I cannot forgive you for that. And you cannot enter into relationship or association with someone until and unless you learn the art of forgiving. So through this episode, the sage watches whether Ram, it was not, we cannot even forgive the wrong things as you consider done to you. How can you forgive it when it is done to others? How can you give a judgment that this particular, because you are all yourself inflicted by those kind of acts? How can you give a judgment that Mr. X should forgive his wife for the wrongdoings, or Miss X should forgive her husband for the wrongdoings that he has performed? She thinks he has done it. When you cannot do your own, how can you give a judgment in case of the other? So Ram, sage, tries to put him to that test, and he says that from today you are liberated. I pardon you from that act which your husband has considered as sin, and you are pure and sublime, because the act was performed out of innocence. This was another test now for him. So the sage realized that he is now lonely, he has curbed all his desires, he is not guided by unwanted desires. The association, through the physical association of marriage, he will attain to inner union of male and female, and he will attain to the purpose that marriage is supposed to be, for awakening, for bringing the light into innerness. And then he continues. So when he goes into, first he removed the nocturnal influence, then he kills Marich and Subahu, then Ahilya, that curse that was put onto her, he grants her forgiveness. Thus it was difficult, and then he reaches to the court of the king, where a mighty bow was put, and all those people who were lustful, who were desirous, full of desires, was not able to lift the bow. It was Ram alone who was able to, because he was not lonely, he was not full of desires, he had the capability to forgive the others for their acts, that he was able to break the bow, and thus he got wedded to the princess. He was able to conquer the lustful tendencies and thus gain the trust and support of the princess. So this is what is the spiritual dimension of the marriage. That in the company of the master you learn, and when the master sees you are capable, then he gives his sanction for you to get married. I will go into another deeper aspects. If there is a desire or anything in you, if there is any question arises in you, you can send it to me and I will try to answer them in tomorrow's session. Until then,